everyone, it's Paul from Alexandria Knife Sharpening, and I figured this might be a good time to give everybody an update on how the laser engraving is going. Talk a little bit more about the particular machine that I purchased, why I purchased this machine, and how I like it so far. So it's been a pretty big hit, I gotta say. I'm really happy with how it's been going. It's basically been something that I have offered to customers that I felt might be interested in it. So the very first customer I had was a person who mailed me an EDC knife that he purchased for his brother, and he wanted me to reprofile it, which I did, and then just through further conversations I told him, hey, I have a laser engraver, and he thought it would be cool to put Happy Birthday Paul on his brother's knife. His brother happens to have the same first name as me. So that was my first paying customer, and all it took was basically asking, would you be interested in this? My next customer was one of my chefs, and I offered it to him, and he thought it would be cool, and same thing, he decided to get it done. And then today he came back with 4 more knives, and 3 of them which he wanted engraved. Now, to give you guys an idea of pricing, what I currently have set on my website, I'm charging $25 to do an engraving, and that $25 includes one piece and the design. So far most of them have just been names, so I haven't done anything real fancy, you know, like a skull or anything cool on a knife. It's pretty much just been text, which has been great because it's been very easy for me to do. And like I said, he came back today and asked me to do 3 more knives, and I'll just show you those right now. So here's the 3 more. One was this Wusthof, and he had 2 more globals. I already did 2 globals for him. He brought in a bread knife. Here's the global. And here's the other global. So that's been really cool. And so, you know, I've been real happy to see that this does seem to be something that people are interested in. I have mentioned before, the reason I decided to do this was that a few years ago, it was about 2 years ago, I had a person that came to me that wanted to get 150 knives engraved, and I didn't have any way to do it, so I had to turn that work away. But it started me thinking at that time, you know, this would maybe be a really great thing to do for tools and knives, to have them engraved. And so I've been practicing. I've also bought all kinds of different things to engrave, so you can do all kinds of cool things. You can make coasters. So this was a slate coaster. I was trying different stuff out. I have a house in an area in Virginia called Lake Anna, so I threw a couple pontoon boats on there, and that's the actual lake, and just little things I was playing with like that. This is one of my personal Spyderco knives. I actually carried this when I was a police officer for the majority of my career, and you can see I decided to just engrave my name onto my knife. So that was, you know, fun and very easy to do. And this has been a great knife, one of my favorite knives that I've carried with me for many, many years. But very simple to do. I mean, this literally did not take long. I think this entire engraving was right around maybe a minute and a half. So let me show you a little bit about the engraver that I purchased, and I'll tell you what I like about it and what I don't like about it. So I purchased a Laser Pecker 4. They are, when I purchased this through a crowd-funded project through Indiegogo. And it's pretty common. You'll see this, companies are doing this now. When they decide to come out with a new product, they'll crowdfund it first, maybe on Kickstarter. Then a lot of times they go right to the next platform and do Indiegogo, and then they'll release it to like the general public. But they also usually charge more for it. So this cost me about $1,600. It also has a sliding bed, so you can do larger engravings, and it has a rotator, so I can do like tumblers and coffee mugs and things like that. The other reason I picked this particular laser, I'm going to turn it on for you here so you can see it. So if you can see up top here, all right, yeah, you can just barely see it there. See, it says 450 nanometers. This has two lasers inside of it. It has a 2-watt and a 10-watt. One's a diode, and I think the other one's infrared. So they're two different lasers. The one here that says 1064 does metal. So that's what I did this engraving and the engravings you saw on the other knives with, was with the 1064. The 450 watt, it can do metal, so it's a little bit deceiving. It takes much longer, but it's mostly for more softer things. So it can do like wood and paper and things like that. But this, and it can also do plastics. So this can, I'm not sure if I showed this before, but I engraved my case for my ear pods. So it's pretty versatile, and that was one of the reasons that 2 years ago I didn't jump in right away, because there wasn't a lot of great affordable lasers that could do metal. So that at the time when I first started looking, and Laser Pecker, I forget what model they were on at the time, maybe 1 or 2, they'd just come out. Actually, I think they've been out for about 4 years, so they might have been on their second or third laser at that time. Their first laser only did soft products, and then they came out with another one that did metals, but you would have needed 2 different lasers. This is the first laser that they came out with that can do almost all materials. So it does, like I said, it has the 2 lasers in there. It does soft and hard. So that's really cool. As far as software goes, it basically is, a lot of that is still, for this particular model, is still being tested and improved. But in general, it has phone apps for iOS, Android, and iOS are the 2 apps. And on the phone, everything so far that I've done has worked fantastic, and it's been very, very easy to use the phone apps. So that was really cool. And it also has software for Windows and for Mac. I have a MacBook, so this is the Laser Pecker software. So it's almost identical software as the app. So I can actually go on my phone, connect to this Bluetooth, and engrave, put whatever text in there. I can do designs and different things. So I'm working on a thing for some Eagle Scouts, for a troop that's had like 50 Eagle Scouts, and I'm refurbishing some axes for them that are going to be in a showcase. And I found this very cool vector design that someone did. This only cost me $6, and I purchased this. And this is like a little piece of birch wood and I just burned the design into it with the engraver just to see what it would look like. But this is going to go in one of the metal axes. So you can do some pretty cool things with it. And even if you're not super sophisticated as far as making vector images and that kind of stuff, you can get a lot of this stuff for free. I've been able to, I've restored logos on knives with it, and I was able to get all the logos online for Wusthof and for knife companies at no charge. If you want something a little fancier like this, and if you want a really good vector logo, there's plenty of places. I bought this one off of a designer on Etsy. It was only $6, and it's like a beautiful vector. It can be blown up, shrunken down to any kind of size, and you can see, I mean, that's just a really nice engraving, and that's going to look really cool on that axe. The software is fairly simple. If you have a little bit experience with things like Photoshop, you'll take to this very quickly. But it's even more basic than it's much more basic than Photoshop. But if you understand layers a little bit in Photoshop and that kind of stuff, you won't have any problem with this. But it's not difficult. So I mean, basically, you can move things around, you can zoom in on them, and you can preview them. Oh, let me show you real quick here. Let's see if we can get a good view of what a preview looks like. I think I mentioned earlier, there's multiple ways I can connect to the laser. So I can connect either Bluetooth, I can connect via a direct connection. It's a USB-C cable. I'm going to plug that in. Everything has worked flawlessly as far as that goes, so that's plugged in already. And then all I got to do is come up here and click connect to device. It already sees it, and now I'm connected to my device. Now, the one thing I don't love, and I'll show you this just to talk about like both things that I do love about, things that I don't love. So it does come with this little protective hood, which part of it's really cool is it's magnetic, so it can go over the lens. With this on there, it has a little fan here in the back, which I hooked up a exhaust tube that runs literally out of my shop door. And that's an important thing to note. If you're going to do engraving, you do want to exhaust the fumes from the engraver out somewhere. Or if you can't do that, they do make devices that will filter the smoke, and you can suck the smoke right into it and it put out clean air. I did order one of those. It did not come yet with it. The things for this laser have been coming in sections. That was kind of an add-on product, so I'm sure that will come at some time. Here's the one thing I don't love about this. Now, if you're doing something small like this is great. I'm just going to do a preview here. So this is the chef's knives that I did. Let me pull, this is a cutting plate. I'm going to pull this off. So if you look inside, you'll see two little dots. And that's the focusing for this machine. Let me just pull, I'm going to pull this off for a second so you can see. So do you see the two little dots and the little box? When the two little dots come together as one, then the laser is focused, and this little blue box is where it's going to engrave. And I can move that engraving around anywhere on this plate that I want it. So if I want to move it more in the center, you'll see, oh, now it's over in the center, which is really nice. So if I was going to put this engraving on this knife, I can line it up with these little boxes, and I can control the brightness of that box too. So for me to focus this, all I have to do is lower or raise the laser till, see how those two little red dots come together, and when they become one, then this laser is focused. And then wherever I put this box, it's going to write whatever I put in here. So in this one, might be a little hard for you guys to see, but it's still, this is from my chef Dimitri. whose knives I did earlier. It just shows on the screen that, there you can see, so there's his name, and the round, the red box is the whole area, but the little inner blue box is its engraving area. So there's a little bit of area. See how it curves up at the top? You wouldn't want to put it in the curve. So you want to make sure that box is not in an area where it's not able to hit with the laser. Alright, so let's go back, and you can see very simply, so all I have to do is put that box where I want it on the piece and then enter the parameters to do the engraving. Fairly simple. Now, what I don't like about this is that it makes it very difficult to see this. So if I do a knife on here, I actually really can't use this. This is great for smaller things that are completely contained within inside here, kind of like this little card is fine, but here's one of the things I don't love about it. You can see, I can see the two dots in there. So basically, you have to line it up where you want it. Now, if you crank up on some things, if they're light in color, like this, I can see the box. But if it's a dark subject, and let me just show you with this knife handle, sometimes it can be really hard to see that box. Now, I can still see it, but I've had certain things in there that have been really difficult to see, and that can be kind of annoying. What would be really cool would be if this had a memory for the height, because I can adjust the height of this thing to focus it from the software, from here, or on my phone. It'll move up and down from there. I wish they would put a memory button in so I could focus it all, move it out of the way, and then have it return to the proper position. But it doesn't have a memory for where you have the height adjustment set. So that's a little bit annoying. Like I said, it's not a deal breaker, but this works very good. This little setup, this little protective screen is great for small objects. But for bigger things like knives, it's just not that functional. I don't really use this when I'm doing knives. No big deal. They give you protective goggles to wear. The other good thing is when you're doing metal, it doesn't create a ton of smoke. Now, if I was to engrave this piece of wood, there is a significant amount of smoke, and you definitely want to catch as much of that as you can and vent it out of your workspace. You definitely want to vent any fumes from metal engraving because they can be poisonous. The fortunate thing is there's not a lot. So when you're doing metal, it doesn't create a whole lot of smoke. It's a little tiny bit of smoke. And I found that I'm able to, and this is one nice thing about it, they did make the vent motor comes off of that little plastic piece. So that's really great. It just pops in. So I can still put this like right next to the piece and it will still suck the smoke out. And that's how I do knife engraving. So what I will do is, if I was doing this knife, I will line it up where I want the engraving to be, and I will just engrave it open, and I will wear the protective goggles if I'm going to watch what it's doing, because I don't have the little case over it. And I just use this, and I get this as close as I can so it's still sucking the fumes out. Now, I did order, they make a really cool box that this goes in that has the protective yellow coating on the entire box like this. And it has a place for the laser to fit in the top, a place so that you can hook a vent to it, and use this entire box chamber as a container to keep all the fumes in and suck things out. And I did order that. Again, it's a product that's available for this, but it's just not out yet. So hopefully that'll be here soon at some point, and you'll get to see that in the future. But this is how I do a knife engraving setup. So I basically line it up here, very simply put that cool little laser where I want the engraving to be, and then on the software side, it's pretty simple, but they do give you a pretty good idea of settings. But basically, I could come in here and I could go to the next step. I'm going to cancel here, but I'll just show you. I can come over here, and there's preset things in here for things that you could engrave. So as you can see, there's steel, there's marble, there's leather, there's craft paper, cardboard, corrugated paper, photosensitive seals, glass, recycled paper, bamboo, poplar, beech, and they have predetermined ballpark settings in there for you, which is kind of nice. So I usually go to stainless steel. You can see it already went to the 1064, and they're saying for stainless steel, 100 power at a depth of 2 is what's recommended. Now, through my own testing, for a nice black engraving like I got here on this knife, where I put my name on it, this was a 100 with a depth of 50. So doing some product testing on different things, because keep in mind there's all kinds of stainless steel. I did some testing on a stainless centering ruler. So I have this centering ruler. I did some testing on the back of it, and I did engraved my name on it, and that's how I was able to come up with, you know, some more accurate engraving numbers for my own self and how I want things to look. And I'm also just keeping a log. So here's a log book that I have where I write down, you know, I did my Spyderco knife at 4K, 100% power, 50% depth, and it was one pass. Now you can do multiple passes with the laser. Now let me show you some other cool things that the laser can do. And like I said before, I am not a laser expert. I am new to a lot of this. So I'm, you know, you're learning right along with me as I go. It can actually cut stuff. And I tested that today. So I had this Beechwood little coaster, which I think is about maybe 3 mils thick. And I just had the laser cut out this design. And I did 2 passes. It didn't look like it had fully cut it at once, so I did a second pass. And then I was like, wow, I think it actually cut it. And look at this. And it did a perfect little cutout of it. And here's all the little pieces. So you could cut letters out to make signs. You know, you could do all kinds of really cool things if you want to have backgrounds for stuff, or cut letters out, or cut parts out of stuff. So that's a really cool feature of this laser. So it can do 4K images, or I'm sorry, it can do 8K images. And there are pictures of that people have done that I've seen. I haven't done any yet, but I mean, it's a just beautiful photograph, and it'll give you almost like a perfect black and white photograph. This was a cool little engraving I did last night, just for fun, as I was testing out the engraver to see what it could do. And this was just like the other one that I showed you earlier. This was an outline, and this was a fully filled in one of the same logo but with different settings. So that's kind of the area I'm in now. I'm doing lots of testing just to see and to get different settings for things. So you guys can see I wrote the settings on here. On this one I actually burned them in just to see, you know, so I would have it to get an idea. And you can see like I overburned here a little bit, burnt the wood a little bit too much. Now you could sand this down a little bit if you wanted. And here's one I did too light. So the settings were probably just not deep enough. And these are all things that, you know, I'm learning as I go. And this one I was like, wow, that was really beautiful and perfect. The only thing I probably would have liked, the eagle in the middle, to be a little less dark here than it is, but still really quite happy with how that came out. So that's an update on the laser, and I will do more on it as I continue to learn. I'm already selling engravings, and really happy about that. So I figured it's going to take about 80 customers for me to break even on it, but I don't think that will take all that long, and I'm pretty excited about that. And I do have a whole bunch of other things that I might offer. Here's some like cool keychains with bottle openers. So things like this make great gifts for like wedding parties and things like that. It can do metal business cards. So I purchased some nice thick 3mm metal business cards that are even laminated on the side, and nice thick ones that don't bend. So I can do business cards. So there's a lot of potential there for things that it can do, making signs, cool things that I'm looking to do in the future, along with just engraving as many knives as I can and adding that as a service for my business, Alexander Knife Sharpening. So that's it for now. I hope you guys enjoy this little update on the laser, and I'll continue to let you know how it's going. And if you have any questions, put it in the comments, and I'll try and answer them for you.